Good morning and welcome to Hedgehog TV. Sorry, welcome to Graphic. Today we're publishing the Hedgehog Book, written by Hugh Warwick, and we'll be joining Hugh shortly, and Faye Vass from the Hedgehog Preservation Society. So before we do that, we've just got a brief video of Jane Russ, who's our series editor. This is a series of wildlife books that we've been publishing for the last 5-6 years. Jane's brilliant, and Jane worked with Hugh in terms of producing this book. So Hugh, Jane Russ.
Hello everyone. My name is Jane Russ and I'm the author of 5 books in the Graphic Nature series. The Hare Book, the Fox Book, the Owl Book, the Red Squirrel Book, and at the end of last year, the Robin Book. When Graphic and I started this series with the Hare Book, we wanted it to be a starting point for people who were interested in whatever the mammal happened to be. The kind of thing that would inspire them to get out there and have a look for themselves, maybe go hare spotting, that kind of thing. I was also keen, however, to include a section on myth and legend and a section on art and literature, so that people could get a sense of where the animal fitted in our culture, a 360-degree overview, if you like. The format of this book was very popular, and in 2019 Joe Byrne joined us and produced the Bee Book. Bees, as we know, are absolutely crucial to the planet, and this has proved a very popular title. The hedgehog was always on the radar as a mammal that we wanted to cover in this series. And I'm absolutely thrilled to say that Hugh Warwick has produced a wonderful book on the subject. All the nature series elements are there, the physiology, the life cycle, and a fascinating section on counting and tracking hedgehogs. Who knew that a hedgehog could cover up to 2 kilometres a night on those little legs? The myth and legend chapter covers all kinds of things, including untrue myths, like the one that hedgehogs will roll in fruit to collect it and take it back to their dens for the winter. This is an absolute myth, but an awful lot of people know it. And the art and literature section reminds us of the charming Alison Utley's Fuzzy Peg, and more recently, of course, Dick King-Smith's fabulous character Hedgehog. I think this book will capture the imagination of the public and act as a springboard for them to further their understanding and conservation of this iconic animal. I wish you joy to read it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane, and straight into you, Hugh.
My audio. There we go. Well, welcome one and all. Thank you very much. Could any of you wave? Could you wave if you signed my petition? Oh, fantastic. For those few of you not waving, that might be because you're ironing, but it could also be because you're about to sign the petition fairly soon. I've just put the link, though it's not a direct link, into the chat. And there's a reason why I push these sorts of things. It's because, I mean, obviously I love hedgehogs. I've been studying hedgehogs since the mid-1980s. I have been working with the British Hedgehog Preservation Society for many, many years. I'm their spokesperson. I did an hour-and-a-quarter interview about hedgehogs for a podcast last night. It takes up a lot of my life, even to the point of being given such absurd tea towels, such as this. I've since been given the Crazy Hedgehog Guy t-shirt as well. But the point of this is, though, that I'm also, underneath it all, yes, the love of the hedgehogs is big, but there's this big part of me which is campaigning. And so writing the Hedgehog book, yes, it's beautiful. I mean, I can say that because I didn't design it. Beautiful to look at, and it contains all of the sort of lovely images you'd like to see of hedgehogs, but it also contains the really crucial messages about the things we need to do to help hedgehogs. And I'm often asked about why this focus on just this one small, prickly mammal. And today in the news, the reason is made absolutely clear. That's the Living Planet Report 2020. It comes out every 2 years. The Zoological Society of London and the WWF put it together. And this year, the data which they've collected is even more alarming than ever before. A 68% decline in wildlife in general in the last 50 years. That's over 2/3 less of everything in just the last 50 years. In my lifetime, there is 2/3 less. That is absolutely terrifying. And the figures for the population decline of the hedgehog mirror this sort of thing. In fact, the population decline of hedgehogs is even worse. So it's important to do the campaigning, and it's important to use the obvious attractiveness of this sort of book as a vehicle with which we can actually take the message forward. So I am many thanks to Graphic for letting me loose on this. It was a real pleasure to do, and it was a very different thing to those of you who've read any of my other books. Also, as a freelance writer, you quickly become shameless. So here we go, shameless plug. I've written other books. The Prickly Affair, for example, is my first book, all about hedgehogs as well. You know, those books were they were quite hard work because I'm trying to get 70,000 words, all structured in the right sort of way. The Hedgehog book is a relatively short book. It's a condensed version of all of this, and it gave me an opportunity to just go for it as quickly as possible. And I'm thrilled with the way it looks and the way it appears. So I really hope you do enjoy it. Reviewing it anywhere and everywhere is always much appreciated because it does help with sales. And Christmas isn't that far away, so you know what to do. Anyway, so the point of the work with the hedgehogs that we do is that the population decline, as many of you will be aware, is serious. It's now, we know with the most robust figures, we've got a chart hedgehog population decline since the year 2000. So in the last 17 years worth of data, so the up until 2018 report we published, urban hedgehogs are down by 30%, rural hedgehogs down by half. And that's just since the year 2000. The Mammal Society data from prior to that suggests a 2/3 decline since the mid-1990s. And so the reason that I work with the Hedgehog Society and also the People's Trust for Endangered Species to run the Hedgehog Street campaign is to try and turn these things around. And what we've managed to do, whilst we've got a 30% reduction in hedgehogs in urban areas, that's leveled off. So we're not quite at the point of having buntings and parties and things like that, but we are at a point where maybe the work we've been doing on the suburban hedgehog populations is paying dividends. We are also now working with the community, the farming community, trying to get changes made to the rural countryside to get it to help hedgehogs too. So there is evidence that these things work, and it's really important that you join up, look at the Hedgehog Street idea, take the central idea of that, which is you've got the most amazing hedgehog-friendly garden, and you will have done all of these things, I'm sure. You will have got a pond or some other water feature which hedgehogs can access and they can get out of if they fall in. You've got a wild patch, you've got a bramble patch, you've got a log pile. You've covered up any drains or other things the hedgehogs might fall into. You've got the world's most amazingly perfect garden. And you look in the evening and you see the bats and the moths flying around, and during the day, the birds and the butterflies. And you're going, I've got the best wildlife-friendly garden ever. But you worry about the absence of hedgehogs. And then you need to look to the boundaries, look to the fence, and make sure there's a hole. It doesn't need to be big, just 13 centimeters square. In fact, you know what? This book could be used as a template, I reckon, for making your hedgehog holes. I mean, be very gentle with it because it's a work of art in itself. But if the hole is about this sort of size, the hedgehog will be able to get in. And the petition is there at change.org, calling on all new housing developments to come with the holes built in to save you the bother of going out and building your own. And the petition, as of just before we started this, was at 945,820. We are we are really within sight of getting 1 million people signed up to this. And it will be one of the greatest sort of step forwards in helping hedgehogs for quite some time. Well, that and adding them to the red list so that we appreciate the importance of them. But the stuff within this book is, as both Peter and Jane have mentioned, is more than just a natural history. And I've had a lot of fun looking at the way hedgehogs have appeared in art and literature. I've been delighted to be sent images. I mean, this one is one of my absolute favorites. This is a genuinely non-photoshopped picture of a hedgehog. The amazing photographer, and his name I want to say correctly because it's impolite if I don't, Jarlath Flynn. He knew there's a full moon coming, and he knew that the starlings were doing their murmuration. And so he went and took a whole sequence of photographs. And it was only when he got home that he realized in one of the photographs they'd made the perfect hedgehog. That thing makes me extremely happy. I love the fact that hedgehogs appear in street art. There's an amazing street artist called ATM who goes around doing wildlife images. And this one at a hedgehog hospital down in Somerset he's done is just exquisite. The hedgehog is there as a current feature of our fascination. But the work we've done and uncovered is showing so much more. If you ever visit Ross-on-Wye, you will discover that the church in Ross-on-Wye is filled with hedgehogs. Ross-on-Wye is hedgehog central for many parts, from many people's perspectives. And let me see what else we've got in here. The hedgehog has been portrayed by the very earliest civilizations. Absolutely fascinating to see that ancient Egyptian, Sumerian, Babylonian representations, mainly through ceramic objects, because those are the ones that have remained. We've been attached to the hedgehog right from the dawn of civilization, all the way through. It's never been one of those sort of grandiose characters like lions and the thing. It's gentle. It's a folk animal. It's been there. We adore it, and this is something which is really significant. We love the hedgehog in a way that we don't care for any other wildlife in this country. Every time there's a vote or a poll, the hedgehog wins, the nation's favorite mammal, the nation's favorite, the nature icon. Each time we do it, the hedgehog wins. And therefore, we can use the hedgehog. We can use it mercilessly, and that's what I do. We use the hedgehog to promote the benefit of wildlife for all sorts of wildlife. Because when you're helping the hedgehog, you are helping so much more. You're helping all of the insect life which comes to the plants that you plant, because those insects lay eggs, and those eggs become the grubs which the hedgehogs eat. The bramble patch you leave provides food and shelter for other wildlife too. The holes you make in the fence allow the toads to come through. On the whole, a 13-centimeter hole, I just see a question popping up, is going to be too small for a dog. But if you have got a very small dog, you can create a sort of tunnel effect. Really clever designs. I've run a Facebook group, which hopefully this is being screened to right now, the Hedgehog Highways Facebook group. And on there, you've got some images which people have made, and people creating sort of tunnels along a fence with the hole then tucked in there. That will stop most other bigger animals getting through. The hedgehog will still snuffle along. So it's a really, you're not going to lose by having this hole there unless you have a very small tortoise, in which case I think you get a pass on making a hole in your fence. But so the idea being is we love the hedgehog. We are fascinated by the hedgehog. We clearly have been fascinated for the last 3, 4, 5,000 years by the hedgehog. It continues. Yet we have it now on the red list of species. It is now considered to be vulnerable to extinction. And we can't let that happen. If we let our most favorite creature slip away, what hope is there for a whole bunch of other species which people care a lot less for? So really, I ask you, join the campaign, join Hedgehog Street, sign up to the petition, and help make our environment happier for hedgehogs. Because when we get hedgehogs in our lives, we are in ourselves happier. You can tell that. Hedgehog lovers, people who get to snuffle around with hedgehogs, they are a happy disposition. Anyway, I've rambled a lot. Faye, we have with us the Chief Executive of the British Hedgehog Preservation Society. Maybe, Faye, could you explain a little bit about what the British Hedgehog Preservation Society actually, what it's for, what it gets up to, and how you work to help hedgehogs? And you might need to unmute.
There we go. Yeah, so we at the Hedgehog Society work with People's Trust on things like the Hedgehog Street project Hugh's already mentioned. We also produce leaflets for the public, for vets, so that if they get hedgehogs brought into surgery, they know what to treat them with. We produce education packs for schools. We fund research into how to help hedgehogs. So all sorts of things. We're kept very busy here.
And so the idea of working with another organisation, this has always fascinated me, because I know a lot of conservation organisations tend to be quite insular, and you know, tends to be a bit of competition between there. Yet sort of we've managed to open up to what could be seen as the competition. I find that a really sort of fruitful way of working. Was that an easy choice to make?
It was really, because you know, together we're much more powerful than we would be individually. And People's Trust have worked with us now for coming up to 10 years on Hedgehog Street. It keeps going, and we keep finding new projects to do and more advice we can give to the public on how to help hedgehogs. So there's lots of sort of strands to what we do with Hedgehog Street. There's a research side of things, there's public engagement side of things, lots of activity on social media. So we engage with lots of people, and a lot more than either of us could individually, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I've really enjoyed it. The idea that you're not working in competition with people who are actually your natural allies, and I think many of us could probably learn from that.
Yeah, it's very important not to duplicate work as well, of course, because that's easily done. If you're wandering off on your own tangent, doing your own thing, that's all great. But if another charity is also investing their efforts into the same thing, what a waste for both of us, when we could, you know, instead join together and work much more efficiently.
And so tell me a little bit about the Hogolog, because this is obviously everyone here is going to be buying the book from Graphegg directly, but at some point Graphegg might run out. So the Hogolog is the font of all things hedgehoggy.
It is. We've got everything you could think of pretty much in the Hogolog. We've got it's an actual paper catalogue that we do send out to supporters, but also we've got an online shop which is available, you know, through our website, and it's got all kinds of wonderful books, none as wonderful as yours, I'm sure. We've also got, you know, Christmas cards. Graphegg do a calendar with us, so all of that's available on our online shop, and lots of advice leaflets and tips on how you can help hedgehogs are available on the website too.
Okay, have we got any hedgehog carers here? Well, actually, how could we have? Oh, we do. I was about to say, how on earth could we have hedgehog carers? Because you'll be finger deep in hedgehog poo right now. But I mean, another thing that the Hedgehog Society does really well is help support and provide information and advice for the carers. But also, I've never quite worked this out. So if I find a hedgehog out in the day and I don't know where my local hedgehog carer is, you can supply that information at any time of day or night. Is that right?
Yeah, we keep a directory of hedgehog rehabilitators around the country. Yeah, they give us permission to give their number out to the public. So whoever calls in, wherever they're from, we can give them first aid advice and hopefully a local contact to someone who can actually help. In the daytime, that's a real person. At night time, there's an answer phone with links to sort of emergency real people who can help and give local contacts then too.
But I mean, I'm an ecologist, that's my background. So I tend to look more at trying to maintain a healthy population of hedgehogs. And I do sometimes wonder, I mean, so much time and effort is ploughed into trying to help an individual sick hedgehog. Do you see that there's a conflict with that? Maybe, you know, should we just be spending our time looking at the big conservation picture?
I think we should probably look at both. You know, the individual hedgehog is very important to that individual hedgehog. But the big conservation picture is obviously massively important, and that's what we do with Hedgehog Street. So I don't think it needs to be either or a competition. It can be both. Yeah,
no, I mean, when I've talked to hedgehog carers, they point out that so many of the hedgehogs that they get brought in are actually only in there because, you know, we as our species have done something to the hedgehog, so that it's a case of trying to sort of, I don't know, redress the balance somewhat. So
yeah, damage limitation, I think. Yeah, we do cause the majority of the injuries and problems that hedgehogs face. So anything we can do either for individual hedgehogs or for the whole population of hedgehogs as a whole, then so much the better.
So I'm excited by my latest venture into the hedgehog world because, you know, not content with a petition and a book. 2 days ago, we launched the Ghost Hedgehog campaign. I don't know whether anybody saw the Ghost Hedgehog story on the media. It was Unfortunately, there's a lot of stuff about other things, Brexit, COVID, whatever, pushing hedgehogs to one side, but we managed to get some attention. And it came from the Dorset Mammal Group, who have been absolutely fascinating with their work. They've just had this idea. There's one village in Dorset where they had 21 hedgehogs killed last summer on the roads. And they were just aghast. Why so many hedgehogs in one place? And so they came up with the idea of creating these little ghost hedgehogs, little wooden hedgehogs. I should point out that it was my neighbour who cut this out for me. I drew it, I painted it, but the actual skill belongs to somebody else. And little white painted wooden hedgehogs placed alongside the roads on private property with the owner's permission, of course. And that to give a reminder to drivers that there are other animals out there and that maybe it's just worth slowing down a little bit. And I'm really hopeful that this Dorset Mammal Group idea will spread far and wide. And if you search through the media work on this, there's been the Dorset Mammal Group also trying to raise money for their own hedgehog hospital because the centre part of Dorset seems to be fairly devoid of rescue centres. So yeah, do have a look out for the ghost hedgehog story and track down the Dorset Mammal Group. It'd be great to give them some support. And thank you, Alison, from the Dorset Mammal Group, who's just put a note up already. So good. Keep these hedgehogs. Well, I sort of don't want to see these hedgehogs appearing everywhere because that's meaning there are hedgehogs being killed. But if they are to be killed, then let's do that. And the wonderful writer, Rob McFarlane, who, when you finish reading all my books, I do recommend his. He just tweeted last night. He suggested that this idea is so powerful. How about we do it for everything? All of the species which end up being killed, we leave memorials to them to give an indication of what's lost. Because as the Living Planet report shows, this is of global significance. It's not just our hedgehogs which are disappearing, it's happening all over the planet. And in the end, this will cause great detriment to us as well.
Also, Hugh, with hedgehogs that are sadly lost on the road, it's always worth logging them on the big hedgehog map, which is another thing we do with Hedgehog Street. So we ask people to log sightings of roadkill, also to log sightings of live hedgehogs, and to log gaps that you've made in your fences. So those hedgehog highways you've made, go onto the Hedgehog Street big hedgehog map, and log the gaps and any hedgehogs you see, dead or alive, because that helps us with numbers and trends and things.
That's great. Peter, Faye and me, we can talk for the next hour. But I'm just wondering whether you want to sort of guide us into a particular direction, because I'm as those of you out there who experience my talks, they don't stop unless people tell me to.
That's brilliant so far, Hugh. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I could certainly listen to it for a lot further. I think Daniel might have gathered some questions for you and Hugh. Sorry,
thank
you. You and Faye. So, Daniel, over to you for questions.
Hi, everybody. My name's Daniel. I'm the editor at Graph-Egg. First of all, I'm sure everyone's heard enough to be enthused about with hedgehogs and would love to pick up a copy of the book, which is available now. So in the chat function on Zoom, at the top, I've posted a link through to the Graph-Egg website where you can buy a copy. And the code there, which will give you a signed copy for $9.99 with free postage and packing. I'll also email this out to all the attendees, so you've got it if you'd like to make a purchase at another time. And there's also a link there to Graph-Egg's T-Mill site where we've got hedgehog-themed T-shirts and tote bags for sale as well, if you'd like to pick up any products there.
But I didn't get one yet, so I had to resort to Climate Action North's wonderful Boss Hog T-shirt, which is, I thank them enormously for this, a fantastic campaign and a fantastic T-shirt. I hope that the Graph-Egg T-shirt is as good as this one.
If you'd like something perhaps even more stylish than Hugh's, then equally in the chat there, any questions that people do have that have arisen from the conversation so far, do pop any questions in there, and I've got some ready here, but continue to post them in there, and we'll be able to put a few of those to Hugh and to Faye. The link for the book and for the T-Mill store is at the top of this chat. but I'll just post that again now so everyone can see it.
Whilst you're doing that, I shall answer the question from Jenny Shorten, who talks about a walled garden in Normandy in France where hedgehogs have managed to get in, which is great. But how do you go about making a hole through a 9-inch thick wall? This is a perennial problem. Luckily, the Facebook group is full of innovative ideas to get around it. Sometimes it's simply a case of digging underneath the wall. Sometimes find a space, find a weak spot within the wall, and then build a ramp up to that bit. Or you find a gate and use that as the way through, because not everybody is going to be able to get through something quite as thick as that. And yes, landlords and neighbours may well object. So there are creative solutions to these things, and people are posting the images out there. So it is worth having a look around.
That's great, thanks, Hugh. Got a question here from Richard Scrimshaw, who asked, do you think that more resources should be used to educate our children about hedgehogs and other wildlife that surrounds us? Possibly some form of mobile roadshow to schools and other places, and something that adults could be involved with as well.
Faye, this is
read your mind. We've discussed this before, haven't we? A Hugh roadshow would be fantastic, but we do send lots of education packs out to schools and try to get engagement with schools. And the army of rehabilitators I was talking about earlier, they're not only busy knee deep in hedgehogs like Hugh says, they're also going out to schools and local WIs and all sorts of groups and spreading the word, as does Hugh. I know he's a fan of a WI.
I like cake. Also, I do a lot of primary school talks. They're the ones that can fit me into the schedule. And so if I'm going to travel any distance to do a talk in an evening, I will check whether there is a primary school near where I'm doing the talk, and just arrive a few hours early and sort of do a closing assembly. And you're absolutely right. It is the key moment. It's getting people excited by nature right at the beginning, and not everybody gets it. Not everybody falls in love with it. I mean, I have 2 children myself, and I really think that they would do anything other than come out on a nature walk with me. But there is hope with other people's children. So it is something which is crucial. And I really, I know that primary school teachers love to have really good material to be able to take in. So the Hedgehog Society's got some material already. And if there were more of me, I would be very happy to do more primary school talks. Part of the problem is obviously that primary schools don't have any budget. So I've got to do this as a labour of love because somebody else has paid me for me to go there. But no, education is crucial. And in the last few months, I mean, there's been much talk about what lockdown has done for our relationship with nature and how much we've appreciated it. But I think it's missing a bit. It's speaking to one very particular sort of audience, and there's a whole host of people who have it's passed them by because they've not been able to get out into the countryside. They've not had the access to nature. So these sorts of messages, pass them by, and it's there. We need to work. We need to work in places where there aren't necessarily so many green spaces and there aren't necessarily so many hedgehogs. We need to start talking to young people and inculcating them right now with the true need we have to have nature around us.
If I can just come in there briefly, we will be producing teachers' notes as a pack, and these will be as a free download on the website. So they will take probably 3 or 4 weeks or so. But working with Faye, we will make those available later in October.
That's brilliant. I didn't know that. There was quite an echo for you there, for me, Peter, just to warn you. But no, I love that idea, and it would be great to use the material which we can work together to spread the word further. So thank you, Daniel. Any other? Oh,
sorry. Got one here from Charlotte Whiting, and says, when I was a beginner wanting to help wildlife, they brought a hedgehog hut that turned out to be terrible for them, with wiring inside, which is dangerous. They want to know, is there anything else that's essential to avoid when you're looking to create a hedgehog space, and what things should you definitely include?
Faye, do you want to give the quick rundown?
Yeah, I mean, some hedgehog homes are far better than others. And unfortunately, usually the more expensive they are, the better they are. Not always, but usually. But you don't have to buy one, you can make one, and we've got plans on the website on how to build your own. Or like you were saying earlier, log piles and little wild corners, even better. You know, it provides natural food, natural shelter. If you do want to provide a hedgehog home, then, you know, do a bit of research. Anything that's got something that can entangle a hedgehog is not good. So if it's got wire mesh inside, it's not great. When a hedgehog goes into a nest box, it sort of tends to tuck up in one of a corner or away from the entrance tunnel. So if it's basically just an upturned hanging basket with just an entrance that the hedgehog can't get away from, then that means it can't get away from predators, it can't get away from the weather so well. So I'd probably, you know, personally, I'd avoid those and go for a more traditional boxy kind of one, like ones like I say, you can download the plans on our website to make your own, which is much cheaper.
And the cheapest way is simply to have a pile of brambles in the back of the garden or a log pile, if you've got the space for it. I mean, the hedgehog houses come into their own if you've got a very tidy or manicured garden and you're trying to replicate some of the shelter. But if you've got a tidy and really manicured garden, then shame on you. Yeah, get rid of the tidiness, get rid of the cult of tidiness, and embrace a little bit of wildness in your garden, because that will attract wildlife, and it's so important. But there's so many questions coming in, I can't keep up with answering them. So Daniel, I'm going to rely on you to filter them through for me.
No problem.
While there's a lull, we should also, Hugh, mention people who can become hedgehog champions on the Hedgehog Street website. I think there's 80,000 plus now hedgehog champions. So it's people who've signed up to be a hedgehog champion. They're given lots of information about how to help hedgehogs. They get access to online materials. They get to join forums and chats about hedgehogs, and also a monthly email with tips about how to help hedgehogs that month and what's going on in the hedgehog world. So links to things like Hugh's petition. So all kinds of good stuff, and it's all free. So yeah, head to Hedgehog Street to sign up to be a champion, please.
Okay, so Alison first asks, what does it mean being placed on the red list? This was the Mammal Society put this information forward for the ISBN list. It means that they're simply now recognised as being vulnerable to extinction. This actually doesn't reflect necessarily a change in the status of the actual population of hedgehogs. It just means there's enough data now to be able to say with some certainty that that is the case. No, it doesn't change anything immediately. However, we would love to see an increase in the amount of protection given to hedgehogs. I think I'm speaking for the Hedgehog Society as well, Faye.
Absolutely, yeah.
And at the moment, the Wildlife and Countryside Act has a number of different sort of levels, as it were, within it, and the hedgehog is on level 6, section 6, and we actually want them raised up to the next layer up, layer 5, which will give it more protection. And this means that obligations would be placed on the part of developers so that they had to take care and remove hedgehogs. At the moment, all the benefits for hedgehogs come under sort of guidance as opposed to obligation. But the good news is, I mean, something which has come from the petition is having, when we got to 500,000, the then minister announced that the hedgehog was to be, it was on the national planning policy framework that guidance to make hedgehog holes was placed there. And I had a meeting just 2 days ago with the ecologist for Oxfordshire County Council, and she now has it as a default in all applications from developers. One of the requirements is that they have to put in hedgehog highways. So it's beginning to percolate through. These small steps are beginning to percolate through, and having the shift in terms of recognition onto the red list for being vulnerable to extinction will give us more power to do that.
Yeah, and popping back to the education question, what I should have mentioned is that we also fund a project called Hedgehog Friendly Campus, which is across the universities all across the UK, asking them to get involved with helping hedgehogs on campus. They do all sorts of things. They make hedgehog boxes, they do litter picks, they do fundraising events and information sharing events. And we've got quite a lot of universities that have started. I think it's 26-ish, I think, got their bronze accreditation last year. Some are going on for silver this year. And more universities are joining all the time. So that's a really good project that if you're at university or if you know of somebody who is, to get them to give their university a kick to get involved if they're not already.
Great. I've just noticed David Sage has put a note. I went and interviewed David and his wife Jackie in Gloucestershire for the BBC Wildlife magazine, and it was Nick Upton who many of his photographs appear in this book. Absolutely gorgeous images, and so we met through there. So David and Jackie, hi, lovely to see you again.
Hello, hi again.
Right, come on, let's get some of these. Are you going to ask more, Daniel? Shall I just go for the ones I can see as they go through?
There are a couple of queries about times of year for hibernation and regular times for them to be when we should be looking out for them, and sort of regular behaviours in that sense when we should be looking out for them, or at any points we should be concerned if we perhaps don't see them.
Okay, so hedgehogs, I mean, they're nocturnal, so the main thing is they come out at night. If they come out in the day, there is a reason to be concerned. It's not necessarily saying that hedgehog is ill and in immediate danger. It could be simply moving from one disturbed nest site to another. But if they appear to be sunbathing or appear to be drunk, these are neither activities that hedgehogs get up to. So those are times that you would intervene and act. But in terms of the broader spectrum across the year, the hedgehogs have a sort of bell curve behavior pattern. They are, on the whole, hibernating between sort of start hibernating in October, come out of hibernation in March, but it varies depending on what the weather is that year. And it's also been changing over the last few years. It feels like, anyway, the hedgehog rescues I talk to are now even finding babies in January, which means you've got hedgehogs out busy courting and mating in December, which you would sort of not normally expect. So on the whole, we would still expect hedgehogs to be up and about now, in fact, very much so, and they'll be busy eating as much as they can to put on as much weight, stored fat reserves, to be able to last them through the rigors of the winter. Faye, sorry, anything else I should add on that?
Yeah, talking about points we need to look out for hedgehogs, one of the main ones which you always shout about every year is bonfire night. And not just bonfire night, but the danger of bonfires in general. So if you've got a pile of materials built up for a bonfire, it looks like a 5-star hotel to a hedgehog. They think they've lucked out. They get into it, you don't check it, then you know the hedgehog's obviously burnt in the fire. So we ask people to move the piles of materials on the day that they're to be lit, and to check carefully for hedgehogs. Same when you're using compost or anything like that in the garden, or strimming, mowing, any long grasses or under hedgerows, just check before you do any work, because so many horrific injuries are caused and deaths caused by just not checking.
Also, sorry, my brain got distracted. This thing, I can't do this thing. The newsreaders have such a busy job when they're doing 2 things at once. And I was just thinking, you guys about to answer another question, and then another question came in, and it pushed out the first question, which was really frustrating me. The coupon code is, I thought the coupon code was changed. Is that different, Daniel, for getting £1 sent through to the British Hedgehog Preservation Society? Is that still happening?
Yeah, I think that's happening as a matter of course.
Oh, brilliant. Okay.
So the specific code is for the offer we've got on for this launch, which is for a signed copy with free BNP.
Okay. So questions which we will have missed inevitably. My Twitter and sort of social media name or whatever is Hedgehog Hugh, surprisingly, so I mean do drop a note through there, and I will do my best to respond. Also, my website is hughwarwick.com, very unoriginal, but it's if you do have notes, actually no, send all your questions to Faye at the British Hedgehog Preservation Society, because she really relishes the challenge.
Well, Hugh, thanks very much, and Faye, I think, shall we round things up now? And as Hugh just mentioned, really, any further questions, please send on to Faye at the at the Hedgehog Preservation Society.
I'll be here till midnight.
Yeah. The book is out today. You can get it through your local bookshop. And any difficulties, please contact graphic.com. If you do buy a book through graphic.com, there's a code which is change. Is that right, Daniel?
The code for the book deal for today is in the chat. THB signed, but I'll email this around to the attendees as well, so that they've got that to hand.
Okay, and £1 goes to the Hedgehog Preservation Society for every copy that we sell. So, well, thank you, Hugh. I mean, it's been a most enlightening discussion and talk. Clearly, there are hours and hours and hours, if not days, of information that you could both generate and give out. And I mean, it's a fascinating subject and terribly important, really, as Hugh first mentioned. And I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that Hugh is an ecologist and has written several books. And is an expert, obviously, on hedgehogs. So thank you all very much for attending, and we hope to see you soon. Thank you, Hugh, and thank you, Faye.
Well, thank you, Greg, for giving me this opportunity, and thank you for all of you for coming along. It's been great. And as soon as all this COVID stuff has passed us by, I'll be back on the road, eating cake with the Women's Institute, entertaining children in primary schools, and talking to whichever audience is willing to let me through their doors. So yes, keep me in mind for when we can relaunch real life. Thank you.